So currently this device is not intended to be a flagship, but it's the main device that LG is announcing at this time. Hi, my name is Fiona Gomo, aka Techie Supreme, your supreme source on all things tech, and today we are going to be talking about the LG V60 ThinQ 5G. That is quite a name, isn't it? I'm sure you all will be quite happy with me. For sanity's sake, we're just going to refer to this device as the V60, but I am pretty excited to be talking about this new product because you guys really enjoyed my content on the LG G8X from a few months ago. So I'm hopefully looking forward to a review model of the V60, and when that comes in, we'll definitely be doing some comparisons and things like that, and whatever additional information I can give you about the V60 in terms of reviews and things like that. But today we're just going to do kind of a preliminary outlook on this device, a little bit of a spec rundown, and just my initial thoughts on what LG is doing. Currently, we don't really have a lot in terms of a specific release date or a exact price. What LG has said, it will likely be priced lower than the base model Galaxy S20, and we can get into my thoughts on the pricing a little bit later. I definitely want to delve into just some interesting things that I've been thinking about in terms of this launch and in comparison to some of LG's prior launches, early year launches and things like that. Currently right now outside, I know that LG has done a lot of other kind of mid-range and low-end devices that are more international, but this is one of the devices that will have like major placements in the US and things like that, and larger markets. So currently this device is not intended to be a flagship, but it's the main device that LG is announcing at this time. Usually LG will announce a flagship model that is going to have the high price and the latest specs, but this year there's a little bit of a turn. I'm just thinking about last year. We saw around this time LG launching not only the very original LG G8, but we had also the LG V50, which was LG's first 5G device. And what is pretty interesting about the V60 is now we've got the dual screen and the 5G in one device, and it's supposed to be a little bit more cost effective. So I think that is a pretty interesting proposition. Overall, kind of just, looking at standard specs and things like that, the device honestly, it's pretty solid. Like I said, we're not really getting too much into a review, but I will say that again, just from the value proposition that we're seeing right now, I think the absence of any other model, and especially any other flagship model, when obviously we've got Samsung and other brands announcing high-end devices at this time, and LG is kind of taking a little curveball. That definitely is something to make you take pause. So in terms of specs, the V60 is, again, it is pretty standard. We get a little bit of a larger display on both the handset itself and the display attachment. So it's a 6.8-inch display for both, and you pop it in and you fold it out, and you can have it as a tablet form. And LG is also talking about, they've made this freestop hinge that has a little bit more control, so you can kind of you know, orient the device how you want to with a little bit more control. What I think is pretty interesting about this device is the fact that despite not being the flagship tier, it does have the flagship chip, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 865, and the X55 modem to enable 5G. But obviously what's happened is that there is a little bit of give and take to make sure that this device is ultimately cost effective. In terms of hardware, outside of the 5G chip, we have 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage with micro SD expansion up to 2 terabytes. That's actually pretty cool. Again, like I said, the device does have a pretty big kind of content consumption and creation proposition, so I'm sure that's why the storage is that high. I mean, LG already has that reputation, but yeah, again, when people are not only consuming content but also creating it, that's obviously a really good option to have on a device. And in addition to that, we have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty much the currently around the highest that we can get for mobile devices, kind of like legally and safely. So again, that is also a pretty interesting proposition. It would definitely be interesting to see how that device does in the real world. We've obviously had a lot of other devices that will currently remain nameless that have had battery issues. So to kind of see device makers get a little bit more adventurous with their battery power for smartphones that are not considered rugged is very interesting. We've also seen that on the Galaxy line. So I think we're getting to a point where people are feeling a little bit more confident to pack a bit more power into their devices. Camera-wise, we have a triple camera setup. I'm calling it a triple camera setup for just to keep it simple. But in addition to one of the lenses is a time of flight lens, and then we have a 64 megapixel lens, a 13 megapixel lens, and like I said, the time of flight sensor. And on the front is a 10 megapixel selfie camera. Some people have been talking about the fact that LG has truncated the amount of camera lenses on this device. We've had devices with up to 5 lenses on the whole body. So I'm not remembering off the top of my head exactly which model that is. I believe that may have been the V40 that had a triple camera in the back and a dual camera on the front. This is a little bit more truncated, but LG says that the 64 megapixel lens in particular has been optimized to pretty much make up for the lack of a third official lens. And then obviously the time of flight lens, you know, has its place in the setup as well. Another interesting feature on the LG V60 is that it is optimized for 8K video capture. So currently there's a lot of manufacturers that are playing around with 8K TVs and things like that, but it will definitely be a while before that's the standard. We're kind of now getting to a point where 4K is becoming the standard for TVs, and still that's still a little bit more higher level, but the idea is pretty much apparently is to kind of future-proof not necessarily the device but the content itself, that, you know, eventually the 8K consumption devices will be more readily available, and we will already have the 8K content to play on our 8K devices. So that is a little bit of a fail stop there, future proofing. Some of the other interesting video features on the device is its sound optimization, the voice bokeh, which pretty much allows people to kind of focus on the voice in the video capture and minimizes background noise. Some other interesting, more content focused features is the fact that we keep our 3.5mm headphone jack, and also maintains its 32-bit hi-fi quad DAC. So we get to keep our audio quality as high fidelity as possible in this day and age where everything is going to wireless. I definitely appreciate an audio jack on a smartphone. I am a bit of a loyalist in that way, so I'm personally pretty happy about that. Now for the V60 and the attachment together. We're seeing on this, obviously the G8 had a similar feature. There's the wide view where you can expand apps across both screens to get a wider view for whatever you need. And a lot of the apps that are compatible with this on the V60 are mostly Google apps, so you know, like your Chrome, Gmail, Photos, YouTube, Maps, things like that. The idea of having this expansive screen for apps like that, again, not gonna delve too much into a review aspect, but again, I definitely think it is a feature that is very standout, and I would be interested to see how that kind of evolves over future generations. And for color options, the V60 will be available in classy blue and classy white, and I think they do a pretty good job for color options as they go. Nothing too spectacular, but we do get a little bit of shimmer, especially on the white version. But again, especially if you are using your attachment, you kind of lose the color scheme for that. And the attachment itself is fairly rugged. We do also have a 2.1-inch notification display on the front. So, you know, when you're closed, you can kind of still have a little bit of use for the attachment. On the inside, however, a lot of things are a little bit more controlled by the handset itself. You kind of can switch to the second screen especially if you're using that as the main screen, but ultimately a lot of the function still kind of belongs to the main screen. And we do have some features on the device where you can pretty much use the second screen as your screen, and then use the handset as something like a control for a video game or typing or whatever kind of use. So again, like I said, the main handset kind of seems to have a little bit more of the functionality, and then the second screen is more periphery. In terms of price, the V60, LG said that it will likely sell for less than the base model Galaxy S20, which sells for $999, and I was just thinking, in comparison to the G8X, which sold for $699, I'm likely gonna guess that the price is going to be somewhere in that range. Obviously less than $999, but probably, you know, maybe a $700, $800 range for this device. Like I said, there's a few specs and propositions that can boost the price a little bit, but honestly, kind of in terms of just basic, basic ideas, it's not that much different from the G8X. So, and if anybody wants to upgrade from the G8X, I'm sure, nothing's gonna stop you. But I would probably say that, if this is something that you already have, if you already have LG's dual screen, you may want to stick with it, especially because this device is a little bit larger, so the attachments are not interchangeable. So it's a little bit larger than the G8X and there was even a little bit of tweaking in terms of the camera module and things like that. The cutout for the camera module that makes the case, the accessory, unique to the V60. We don't have any other release details yet, but we do know that the device is going to launch on AT&T, US Cellular, T-Mobile, and Verizon. And in terms of the 5G functionality, we do know that Verizon will support sub-6 and millimeter wave, while the other carriers will only support sub-6 5G. So that is also something to take into consideration. Verizon did have their own announcement about their ultra-wideband millimeter wave device, which probably may be a little bit more expensive than the other models, but again, a lot of that information is not out yet. So that pretty much wraps it up for my first impressions on the LG V60 ThinQ 5G. I'm pretty excited to get my hands on this device a little bit further and to bring you guys more content on this. I would love to know what you thought about this video. Is anybody interested in buying it? Anyone interested in buying it? Anyone interested in trading up from the G8X? Or are we waiting for any other LG devices to release later on in the year? I'd love to hear what you have to say about this in the comments below. And you can also like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, bye.